Welcome. Happy everything. Happy eclipse season. It's quite intense energies right now. Welcome to episode 4. I'm so excited to be here with Annette for Ascension in the Raw tonight. And thank you for joining us. For those of us who are here live, welcome. We're so excited to have you. Please put your questions in the chat. We got a big topic tonight. And then for those on the replay, thank you so much for tuning in, and we love and appreciate you too. Um, it feels very important before we jump in, because there's always so much to share, to just take a moment of pause together and to allow ourselves to fully arrive. And so today, there was just so much going on energetically. I was like, I've got to be out on Gaia. I've got to be out in the forest and really slow down. And it's important. It's such a perfect time for our subject matter to get into the energy, to get into the body, and to get into the body's consciousness, which is such a different frequency, very relaxed along with Gaia. So, just inviting everyone, let us synchronize our nervous systems. Let us anchor, plug in, lock in, shoot our roots down into Gaia, into 5D, Mother Earth, Gaia, crystalline frequencies, and just calling forth that frequency into our bodies, inviting in more spaciousness and just claiming, declaring it to be so. I am spaciousness. I have more than enough energy and time, creative energy, just calling forth that which we wish to cultivate and remembering, so important right now, as we're in such a fluid time, that what we're in right now, in this now moment, is technically a creation from the past. So we're always creating the next moment. So you can always invite in what you wish to experience, what you wish to cultivate. And so that has to do a lot with the body and the physical realm and everything we're going to talk about today. So thank you all for joining us, and we can jump in. Annette, I don't know if you would like to kick off, whatever you like.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. Again, we have so much fun every time we get to do this. Boy, there's so many things that you kind of touched on, especially when you talk about the body consciousness. I don't think when you talk about ascension, I don't think we really understand when we start how important it is. And I always kind of explain it like your higher consciousness is a hot air balloon that kind of pulls your body up, but you're always going to be at a higher consciousness with your higher consciousness, mind consciousness will be higher than the body consciousness. It's that's always going to be that way. You're never going to catch it any different way. It's always going to be that way. You're always going to be able to hit a higher consciousness with your mind, with your field, than your body's going to ever be able to hit. But it does pull our body up. But we don't actually arrive in any realities until our body consciousness vibration is up, where we become aware of our body. And until that happens, not much happens. We have a lot of energetic stuff happening, and we might feel a lot of stuff energetically, but nothing really happens until we get into the body consciousness raising. So I'm really excited that we're going to talk about that tonight. I'm going to let you start, and I'm going to kick it back to you.
That's awesome. Yeah. So one of the things I said is, like, over the years, like, the body is the final frontier. And I love talking about the disassociation that we may experience from the body, or feeling like weighed down, or it's just like a bag that we're dragging around. We're not really consciously inhabiting it. I think a lot of us are like living up here, up here, disassociated, disconnected from the body. And I have observed, at least from my own experience, the separation, or the perceived separation, of living in the body versus just being like a nebulous energetic cloud, like one with source, and this like primordial soup. Is it just strictly energetic? I feel that the correlation of grief or separateness, or feeling like, there's so many ways to say this, like abandoned by God, or like cast out, like that embodying the body has maybe on some unconscious level felt like that for many individuals at a soul level, like, oh my God, I'm disconnected from source. I'm cut off by being separated, so to say, in the body, like in the flesh suit. And so I think the most important piece, for those of us who have felt really disconnected from the body, or perhaps even confined by it, maybe perceiving it to be a limitation, or perceiving it to be a literal pain in the ass because it requires maintenance, it requires all of this. Um, Looking at how, like, mainstream society, humanity, unconscious humanity views aging. Like there's so many layers of belief systems with all of it. But I think the first piece when we want to talk about the body is to reframe, to start to see it as a gift of Mother Divine here on Earth, on the planet. It is made of Earth and stardust. So it's a very fascinating combination, of like quantum and celestial here on Gaia as well. This almost like a star-seeded component, like out the get-go, when we look at our atomic makeup. And the word material, the word matter, is actually the root of the word for mother. So the material realm and the physical realm with which we live in here is a gift of Mother Divine, like a Play-Doh, to create as creator beings. So if we start to reframe, first of all, of like instead of our bodies being like an inconvenience or a limitation or any of these kinds of more negative associations, looking also the hypersexualization, of mainstream, like in the body. And so it's very interesting to reframe, first of all, what is it? What is the body like? What is it for? Right. And it's a vehicle, it's a vessel, it's your spaceship, it's your Merkaba, it's your light ship, it's the housing of the soul, or Buddha would say, the vehicle for your enlightenment, you're the house of the soul, the temple of the soul here on the physical plane. So first of all, we start to realize like, wow, this is actually a gift, right? And then we start to get into the multi-sensory experience of perception and the five senses, and what a gift it is to have a physical form in order to be able to taste things, to smell things, to actually hold a pen and create. So starting to really expand, first of all, the body, right? Beyond limitation, beyond objectification, which I think we have some of that going on here in the chat, which is interesting. Um, of course, right? We're talking about the body. We're going to bring in
Yeah.
all kinds of tools.
Everyone knew we were live, so everyone ran over here. Oh, wait, they're live. Let's run over there and talk to them. That's too funny. Go ahead. Go ahead. I had to say that. Everyone just ran over here and be like, what? What's going on? Personally, I will say I was a Bon Jovi Poison fan. If we're going to talk about heavy metal, though, that was my jam back in the day. Little Warrant, little Motley Crue. That's what I was jamming to. So just throw that in, and you may continue.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So we'll get back on topic. So I'm if you want to run with it, Annette, I'm gonna do some cleanup.
Okay. Well, we'll do so while you do your cleanup. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about physical body. And one of the things that I was thinking about today, I have a couple of cats outside that are, one's very feral, a couple other ones are just not super friendly. But when they get sick or they get any kind of anything going on, and they go through upgrades just like we do, I will give them a lot of homeopathic kind of stuff, right? And I realize how quickly it works on them. And they really respond well to it because they don't have all the human trauma. They don't care that they were abandoned by their mother at age 2. They don't carry all that stuff with them. And in our human body, not only do we carry it for this existence, we carry it for all of our existences. We just don't sit here and carry it for just this one. But for a while, you're going to be focused on just this one because that's the only one you can see. Our human consciousness can just see this much, right? We can't see more than that. So because of that, and because we can't see more than that, we have such a limited view of what's going on. We have a limited view of what goes on with our body. And once I see how quickly like animals react to different homeopathic medicine, natural medicine, things that more support the body than fight against the body, I always thought it was super funny that when I would suggest that to other people, any type of homeopathic stuff, they really would not feel the benefits of it. And I was always like, that's really weird because every time I take it, I can feel it almost immediately, right? But I was at the point where I could hold anything. But this was years ago when you can first start to feel into things, like you pick up something and feel it. And a lot of people do that if you pick it up and you lean forward, or you lean back. You're leaning away from it or you're leaning toward it. That was one that was very common back in the day, a way to test if you like something or not. So when we start really looking at that and looking at our body and looking at why doesn't some of this stuff work as well in other people? There's so much of our human stuff in the way. And there's so much. So I think you'll find even homeopathic stuff will work better as your body consciousness raises. You're going to find more affinity to that. It's going to work quicker and it's going to work for you better. Um, because you don't have all this stuff in the way. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there because I was thinking about that today and about why that happens the way it does and why our bodies do start to change and how important it is to register that. And a lot of people don't register it so much, I think, because like a lot of my physical body stuff happened to me way before I went through my awakening. Like in the early 2000s, I had a lot of really weird physical stuff going on. It did eventually lead me to a more homeopathic, natural kind of medicine or natural kind of doctors. But in the beginning, that's not where we were, where I was. I was going through the traditional route, and that left me just spinning around for years and years and years. And then I went back to sleep for a while, and then I went through my awakening years later. But there was a purpose to that. So when we start really getting into the physical body stuff, I don't talk too much on my channel about the physical body stuff. I will a little bit, but I have not had it as harsh as some people have. I think one reason is I went through it earlier. I had an earlier bout of it for like 7 years, and I also move around quite a bit. Now, it doesn't mean I don't have physical body upgrades. I know we're going to go more into what that means because it does mean different things for different people, and different parts of the body mean different things too. It's not as linear as we think it is. And it's never the one thing you think it is. It's kind of like when we talk about our physical realities. We always think we're at one place to do one thing. What is the one thing that I'm supposed to do while I'm at this job, or one thing that's going to happen when I'm in this relationship? And we kind of wait for that one thing. Whatever that one physical thing is you're waiting for to say, this is a success, or this is what I was here to do. But your soul's not there for that physical thing. Your soul's there for something else. And you might have access to that from your consciousness, or you might not have access to why you're really there. And that's why we get into the whole closure. We got into that, I think, a couple of weeks ago, where you're never going to get that, because it's not about that one thing. It's not about that physical completion of whatever you're going for. It's when your soul's done. And if your soul's done, it's just done. And that's why so many realities fall apart so fast, because when your soul's done, the shit is done. It's over. And you can try to resuscitate it and you can try to tape it back together. But when your soul pulls out of it, it's over. And there's no point of the reality anymore. But a lot of that is depicted by our body consciousness. And you will find that you will go into a room and you might see someone and you might go, I really want to talk to that person. But you don't really know why. And it might be years before you know why. You might not have reality with that person for years. I mean, Marissa and I were in a group for years before we ever really came together and talked and did anything together, because it wasn't the right time. But anytime you're in the room with someone, your body is energetically talking to them. You don't have to say anything. Your body's going to sit there and talk to one another and go, okay, can we have a reality? What's in the way? You got to go deal with that. No, you got to go deal with that. Okay, we'll come back in 6 months. We'll be in a room together again, and we'll see where we're at. I mean, people call it the cosmic dance. I did it with a person for, God, probably 3 years. We would come together in a room and I'd see him, but we would never have a conversation. But energetically, we were. But our human's going to say, oh, nothing happened. What a waste of time. But energetically, everything is trying to line up. But if it's not the right time yet, and it won't happen. But what our human wants to do is kind of force it. We want to force it to happen. We're going to go up and talk to the person. We're going to go up and force this to happen. And then the whole thing starts off at a frequency that just makes it all kind of cave. So I'm going to kick it back to you, and you can kind of take some of those points or go in a different direction.
That's such a good point. And you're reminding me of a great visual example of this for people to understand energetic projection and energetic pushiness, energetic boundaries, or inappropriate use of life force energy is the movie version of the, what is it? I'm thinking the Cosmic Insight. I can't remember the Celestine Prophecy. Like you can actually see an interaction between a man and a woman and they have chemistry, and the man is being like too pushy with his energy, and the woman's energy shuts down and she bones out of the situation because it's an encroachment on her field. And like that gets into really subtle stuff, which is so important to take into consideration. I want to address, we've got a wonderful question here back on like the physical about parasites, simple parasite detoxes for those new to this. So thank you so much for this awesome question, Corey. Thank you, brother, for being here with us and holding it down. Um, I will love to share an experience I had with parasites. Living abroad in Peru for a couple of months exposed us to a lot of things that we weren't really aware of until we returned back to the States. And I did a lot of research. It's important to understand that parasites are primordial intelligence. They are life forms that are incredibly evolved and incredibly smart to the point where they can link in with us, right, through our systems and actually control us and operate us like a puppet to eat what they want us to eat so that they can propagate. Like they're extraordinarily intelligent. It's like this is the fodder for like the alien movies, like the actual alien movies, like the Alien versus Predator movies, like that kind of very interesting, like being a puppet for another organism. And that's why our sovereignty is so important. That's why our bodily autonomy, our boundaries, and also the quality of foods that we are eating. So the first thing is understand the intelligence of what you're dealing with and kind of meet it on an even playing field and respect how ancient it is as a life form, while at the same time holding your power and saying, I didn't invite you. I didn't invite you. Sorry, not sorry. And then we begin the protocol. So the best things you want to do is first understand how ancient and intelligent they are and how little nutrition they actually need. So you do need to not only starve them out, meaning don't give them the qualities of foods that they desire, meaning simple carbohydrates and sugars, all starches, all sugars. You got to cut those out, which sugar is almost everything. So that means you got to cut out grains, rice, very simple, basically like vegetables and meat if you eat meat. And you need to use herbs that are going to also kill the entire life cycle because they have an egg cycle, like a whole life cycle going on. And it's connected to the lunar cycle as well, which is fascinating. So, what worked really well for me was the dietary shifts to starve them that way. First of all, they're not getting anything that they will need to survive. Energetic dominance and energetic sovereignty of declaring war on them, like this is my temple and I didn't invite you, so you're about to get swept out of the place. And then a protocol of massive dosing, mega dosing. The company is Herb Farm, PH, like pharmacy, but with a PH, Herb Farm. Herbal tinctures. They're not very expensive. And it was clove, walnut, black walnut, and wormswood. And you want to maybe get like 2 bottles of each of those, and you're going to take them several times a day, multiple times a day. I would take 2 dropperfuls of each one in water, and it tasted so gnarly. It was extraordinarily bitter, but maybe 4 times a day, up to 6 times a day. And then I could feel the die off literally happening in my body. You'll get very bizarre sensations. It's very creepy, actually. Very weird sensations. And then I actually went to a hydrocolon therapist to help move them out of my body as well. But I was also taking oxy powder, which is available from the Global Healing Group, Dr. Group, who is amazing, amazing starseed, elder, millennial, indigo, health guy, amazing herbal formulas. But his oxy powder is an oxygen that also will help to scrub the intestines, where these beings reside typically. So, yeah, hopefully that went in depth on all of that. So, thank you for that great question because that will assist people. And it's all about sovereignty, right? It's all about whether it's a mindset, some kind of an infiltration that's like a psychological virus, right? Of fear or whatever, or another kind of psychological virus of comparison and objectifying the body and like really creepy and dark and sinister topics like beauty standards. Like there's a lot of shit we got to purge from our consciousness, right? And it's perfect because Venus is retrograde now. So I want to share, and then I'm going to pass it back over to you, Annette. This is a really great concept, everyone. Imagine if we were in ancient days and the only time you really saw your face was maybe, if you're lucky, 3 to 5 times in your entire life, and it would be in a reflection of water, a pool of water, most likely moving water. If we hardly ever saw our faces compared to the modern time with how much suffering and mental illness is happening, an obsession with the physical, like the gross obsession with the physical, imagine how different and how liberated we are and how purified our self concept is if we live in ancient days, hardly ever see our faces, and really we're only seeing one another's faces because we weren't meant to stare at our fucking faces and the selfie crap, all this crap, all of this. It's just awful, right? We weren't made for that. We were made to look at each other and to connect, you know? So just these like really interesting concepts like that, like, oh my God, look how like distorted everything has become with technology and like modernity and vanity, right? So we're taking this, we're really blowing it open here. But that's another great concept. As we have Venus retrograde, a lot of us are reassessing our self concept. And so if you take away the thieving energies of comparison, or these bizarre beauty standards that are, you know, a whole agenda, all these narratives, if we just take that out, oh my gosh, look how much more energy you have. Life force energy, right? Because it's not being wasted in like comparison or feeling less than, like, which is essentially the words that came through the other day as I was thinking about our call today and preparing, were cursing ourselves. So there's a lot of, you know, the body is a huge topic. It's a huge topic. So I'm so jazzed to be talking about it, and everything physical. So thank you, Annette. And I'm going to pass it to you now for wherever you want to go.
I do want to add something to the parasite discussion and the body consciousness, the actual physical parasite, and then the energetic. Where are we being parasites and where are we letting ourselves be used by a parasite? You know, look at it from all directions because our physical body will inhabit what energetically we are inhabiting. You know, so where are we also very parasitic, or we're allowing others to be parasitic on us? Because we really have to look at our field and clean that up. Our body is going to mimic I mean, technically, the whole human consciousness, the whole collective, it's all parasitic. You know, when you're in human consciousness, that's parasitic. It is a cult mentality. Everyone's kind of huddled up together, and people will say it's not a cult, so you try to leave, and then you're ostracized, and it is totally a cult. You know, human consciousness is a cult. Those collectives, it is a cult-like mentality where everyone's kind of got to be doing the same thing. Everyone needs to be, you know, always sort of, you know, don't break too far away from the norm. And even when you try to break away from the norm, you kind of just you try to conform in a different way. You know, spirituality is a big way where people feel like you're breaking away from the norm, but you're just really getting together and you know, you're just getting together with a different group of people and trying to conform with that. So there's just so many different when we talk about the body and we really start to go into what does happen in ascension with the body and how has our body changed when you're talking about the just how many times, you know, there is a part where some days I feel like I look so much older, and then other days I feel like I look a lot younger. There are people that will say that you'll age up. Your body will age up to the age you would have died in your human template, you know, in your original human template, and then you'll start to de-age. So a lot of times people who are farther into ascension might look younger, a lot younger than their age because they've started the, you know, de-aging process. And then people who are just in another part of ascension might look a lot older because they're going through still running through that template in a sense. Even though to me you kind of can still be doing both. You can still be cleaning up your human template and starting on your ascension template. Even though technically they're different frequencies, I do feel like you have some bleed over um, because you don't just leave one all of a sudden. You know, it's almost like Chutes and Ladders. If anyone played that game as kids, where you know you climb up and you're here, but then something happens, you feel like you shoot back down. There was a that's based on an ancient game, and I can't remember what it's called now. You might know, Marissa. It was Shoots and Ladders based on that, and it's like a game you have to use like I used to have it. I don't know if someone in the chat might know what it is. You had to have like some kind of artifact to play the game, like from you, like a ring or something, and then you would kind of play the game, and it was supposed to map out your whole human life, what you're supposed to learn, you know, from your existence. I can't remember what it's called now, but I'm sure someone in the chat will know that. You'll know what I'm talking about. But you know, as we continue through, there's so many different parts of our life where you can look back and see where your body was trying to tell you something. Your body will always kind of your body in the beginning to your body is sort of the lever that's being pulled because it gets your attention, right? Because you're not as in tune energetically yet. So like when I would do any type of energetic reading, I would always tilt my head. I go this way, I go that way. I'd be sitting there and I would go because I'm tuning into a different frequency. I was getting information. People who channel, everyone really should channel if you've never tried it. When I would channel, I would feel it coming in from it would just feel like it was kind of pressing, but it was coming in, outside in. And until you get to a certain part of ascension and you embody it, and then everything comes from inside. But your body gives you a lot of telltale signs of things that are going on. Even if you will listen to someone and you might not know what's off about something they're saying, but something's off. It's like because their words don't match the frequency of how they're saying it. The frequency is what your body's picking up on. The words are what your human's picking up on. You're like, they don't really match. Something's off. I don't know what it is. I can't tell what it is. There's certain times that people will even give the most mundane things about you're getting in an elevator and all of a sudden you feel like, oh, I don't feel comfortable in this elevator. I'm going to take the stairs today. I don't want to be in that elevator. I don't really want to be in a room with this person for whatever reason. Or I don't like that workplace when I went there. I didn't like the way it felt. Because our body would kind of give us clues. We don't really want to listen to it because our human always wants to override it, because our human doesn't like the judgment of what happens if we speak up and say this or that. And it always comes back down to we don't like the judgment of it. We don't like the way that feels if we say, oh, I don't want to say no to that, or I don't want someone to think that I'm not, that I'm don't want to do that. It doesn't even matter what it is. It's going to be different for everyone, no matter what situation you're in. It's always going to be different. As our body starts to really shed a lot of the human programming, whether you're having body clearings in one direction or the other. I mean, a lot of us been going through a lot of lung stuff. It's been a lot of congestion. Normally for me, my body hits frequency and then I start a physical clearing. And then I'll start, what your human and what I would have labeled in my human existence as an illness. You start going through something. You're clearing something from the body. You're clearing your own unconsciousness, really. Anything that's not that frequency now has to go. And you're either going to have the physical stuff or you're going to have the emotional stuff start to come up. And when you have the emotional stuff start to come up, I don't know which one's the worst, because they both can be very hard on our physical body and very hard on our life in a sense. There's a big part of this journey where you look at everyone else who's not going through it and they're living their human life and they're getting married or they're having kids or they're doing the human experience, whatever that meant for them. And you can kind of get a little, I don't know if jealousy is the word, but maybe it is the word. You feel like you're like, wow, I'm kind of doing this and I feel like I don't have a life anymore. There's a lot of that, I think, during certain parts of your physical body clearings, which to me are, the financial clearing is rough when you go through the financial resets, which will probably be a whole nother topic we can talk about another day. But the physical body stuff is another huge one. Because you feel like you're kind of taken out, and whether it's just you're emotionally taken out of everything or you're physically taken out, you just can't physically do it anymore. You don't really feel like you're part of anything. You feel like you're separate from it. And in the beginning, you don't really feel like you're so uncomfortable with yourself because we're so uncomfortable with our own natural frequencies and the frequencies of nature, which eventually you go past the frequencies of nature and that doesn't feel as high to you anymore. You don't require it as much as you used to because now your body frequency is even higher than that. But there's so much of this journey where we can feel left behind because we don't have that human stuff to propel us on. And for a while, that external stuff is what drove us. I've been rattling on for a while because there was something I thought about when you were talking about selfies and I forgot it. And I just came back to me. So I'm going to kind of put that in here and then I'm going to take it back to you. I went to a funeral years ago and they took selfies with the body. And I'd never seen that done before. And I remember watching it, and these were younger. And, age really doesn't matter. But at the time, I just marked it as, boy, that must just be the generation. And it was a younger person that had passed away. And they were taking selfies with the open casket. And there's so many different ways you can go with that. I'm like, are we that much of a selfie generation Um, I work with a person, so maybe that was just something that he was really into, was just selfies. I didn't know him on that. I didn't know him on that capacity, so I wasn't sure. But I remember just seeing that, and just like anytime you even turn on your phone, every time, even today when I turn the phone on, I hit a button and it said, "Oh, retouch, touch up," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll take that." Touch up, like, okay, I'll click that. Because everything kind of drives us to that. Do you really want to? You don't want to see what you really look like. Do you want to touch your photo up? I'm like, yeah, I'll click that button. What does it do? I can't know. Can I tell the difference? So anyway, I'm gonna kick it back to you. You can go with that.
Oh, that's fun. Oh my. Okay, so I want to stay on with a couple things I felt would be very important to share is the amount of investment of time and money in the body during the awakening and the ascension. So if you've never been aware or mindful about food quality, that's going to change. Water quality, that's going to change. You're going to find yourself investing more money and also coming across lack consciousness, like, oh my God, I don't have enough, whatever, right? Or that's way more than I want to spend, whatever. And you get to these points after you break through the stubbornness and the lack and the separation of allowing, okay, if this is what my body wants, and sick people, those who have been ill, are the first ones to no longer take their body for granted. So I want to touch on illness and disease, diagnosis, me, myself, like Annette, you were talking about, earlier body stuff. And for me, I went through childhood illness, quite serious, serious childhood illnesses, autoimmune, but it was all soul awakening stuff. It was the only way the soul was going to bust through the ego and the environment that I was in, to start to connect at a soul level and have that awareness. And so for me, my awakening journey very early on in early childhood began with childhood illness and understanding and having like messages coming through from interdimensionals, guides, angels, if you want to say all aspects of soul, showing me how dis-ease is created, and it's through holding negative frequencies, whether it's negative belief systems, combination of emotional or trauma, ancestral trauma, where we live. Also, sometimes like the energy of a place, like if we're too porous, too empathic, it just goes and runs through us. And so our belief systems and our mindset are extraordinarily powerful with regards to the frequency of consciousness that we are holding. And as we are going through our journey, a lot of people get the illness route, right? The diagnosis route, whatever. These different words, we'll just use words, the big C word, cancer. And it's a huge initiation on a shamanic level. If you look at any of the shamanic initiatory traditional ways, illness and disease is the first initiation onto your path as a medicine person, which is all of us. So it's important to take into account and take our power back from diagnosis and look at, again, I always go back to ancient days and like the ancient perceptions when we were a lot closer to nature as the way to navigate with more clarity and groundedness and like clear seeing of how our ancestors, how the ancients would view an event. Taking out entirely like the materialism of the human era that we're in, you know, all of these modern constructs or big pharma, like taking all of that out of the equation entirely. But it's really important to really expand, our perception of what's happening and to go beyond the framework, all the narratives that are established with the diagnosis, with these big words and like giving our power over to it. Um, oh yeah, okay, so that's going to happen to me. That's the way it is. That's what they told me. So again, it's coming back to sovereignty and listening deeply within. And also, another one I want to share for anyone going through anything, even if it's just stubbing your toe or getting a tooth extracted, is Louise Hay's Heal Your Body, Heal Your Life. Very important to look at the metaphysical correlations because the body itself is a star map. It's just interesting parallels of left and right. It's sacred geometry. There's a lot of very interesting esoteric things going on with the way that we are made, the structures, the underlying geometric structures at a cellular level, at an atomic level. So it's important to look at the metaphysical correlations of body parts, vertebrae, like, left and right, all of these amazing ways of decoding our experience. And so for me, like Annette was sharing, I didn't have a ton of physical stuff because I ate really clean. Where I grew up, we didn't eat processed food. We made our own food. We didn't eat packaged or shipped in food. It was too expensive. On the big island, everything would come over in cargo, right? So you're not going to pay $5 for a box of Teddy Grahams. You're going to eat your own food, So we grew our own food. We didn't do soda, like none of that stuff, no corn syrup. So already compared to someone who doesn't know about food and nutrition, and then starting with the illness, childhood illness, put me on the alternative path, Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine. Again, this is like 7, 8, 9 years old of age. So I'm unique with regards to, that access, like that awareness of homeopathic, naturopathic, ancient herbal remedies, Ayurvedic, traditional Chinese, basically the antithesis of corporate, military, pharmaceutical medicine that we have right now. That is basically dissolving right now, losing all credibility as we speak. But so some people may have to go through a whole detox process of like, oh my gosh, I wasn't aware of food quality. So I ate fast food my whole life. And now I have this diagnosis of whatever. And I've got to detox, I've got to clean up, But the good thing is that everything is just a result of what you're putting in. And that's the content you're putting in, whether it's the thought forms, entertainment forms, the quality of the nutrition, right? And so you want to start looking at your body as, like I used to say this at the when I had my raw chocolate company at the farmers markets, and I would be educating people about food quality and like superfoods and stuff. And the only way that I could get to them, because they're like very materialistic people, very wealthy people, but they weren't really consciously, they didn't understand, like, why would I buy organic, or who cares about GMO or whatever, and just explain to them, like, okay, so if your body is a Mercedes Benz or some other really finely crafted machine, it's very expensive, and it's a work of art and it's special, you're not going to just put any low grade oil into it. Like, you're going to make sure you change the filters. That's another thing, trying to assist the older populations with things like doing detox protocols, even very simple, like a little liver cleanse, basically just taking or drinking a tea, even that would assist the detoxing of a certain organ. And they want to argue with you about it. And I say, well, don't you change your oil filter on your car? Don't you change the filter bag for the vacuum? Our organs are purifying our body. So we need to support them to do their job, just assisting. So yeah, I wanted to throw that out there, is that some people may have to start with, first of all, detoxifying heavy metals. A lot of people remove the mercury stuff, the fillings, from their mouth, changing up what they're putting in their body, food quality wise and water quality wise, and then beginning to supplement. And that's just starting to raise the frequency of the body to then hold the higher consciousness, And with time, you can raise the frequency of your body with rays of color and light frequencies and the sunlight and intention, connecting with different aspects, your soul's light, all of this can start to radiate and raise your frequency too. But that gets to a certain point, you've got to remove a lot of the carbon, if you will, transition more into your crystalline in order for that to come in. But I wanted to just share that it's important for people to realize that it will take some kind of an investment, whether it's a lifestyle change and like the slow living lifestyle, or a dietary change, or supplements, or investing in body care, like cranial sacral, or chiropractor, or acupuncture, or yoga, or Reiki. And you can do all these things yourself. I did it all on myself, on a shoestring budget, so you can do all the work yourself, all this, and then that kicks on the light body too. But that's the first, second major reframe I would want to share, is the first thing I said earlier, which is trying to understand what the body really is a vehicle for us to be here, and honoring it as sacred and holy and precious and a gift, and not like trashing it, and owning our sovereignty in it, and then raising the frequency of it and being willing to invest. Because when we're willing to invest, and that's a huge like piece for all of us, abundance wise and money wise, and lack consciousness, if we're not used to a certain lifestyle habit of being, then we have to do some modification in our mindset or our attitude, and not come from lack. Because the truth of the matter is, when we're willing to invest in our body, then the body can do the energetic work for us to create our reality through our light body, which is linked with the nervous system. So the more we're willing to invest in ourselves, that will come back like a thousandfold. And it's important to know that. but all of us have to come to these pieces inside of trusting that that's our truth, right? So yeah, those are all really big, but I'll kick it over to you now, Annette.
Every week I say I'm going to get a pen and paper so I can write something down as soon as you say it, because as soon as you say it, I get it, and then frequency shifts and I shift and it's gone, and I'm like, crap, I was just gonna say something. But I do think it's interesting that when you did touch on cancer and in the beginning when you started talking, and that is a lot of people go that route. It's a big purifier of the human DNA, right? It does clear the human DNA out. The issue is what do you reprogram it with? Do you go back and reprogram it with the human DNA all over again, or do you reprogram it with something different? And it's not as simple to, if it's not your time, in a sense, because if it's not your time, you're not going to feel the pull to it. I've seen a lot of people go through that chose that option. I always like to say chose that option because it isn't a way people go. It is a quicker, in a sense, way to clear out a lot of stuff. It does return you back more to your galactic form. It's why you do have the hair loss, and it does return you back to that, that more of that galactic, what we would look at is what we would assume is more of a galactic form. But as we start to talk about a lot of that stuff, there's different ways to clear different things. There are some things in life we avoid. And because we avoid them, we avoid talking about them. We avoid going through different realities. You'll find the more money, that's one reason money gets removed for so many of us. The more money you have, the more you will avoid things. Because money can buy your way out of a lot of things. And you don't have to do certain things. You don't have to have hard conversations. You don't have to go do this. You don't have to go do that, because I'll hire someone to do that. I'll hire someone to go do that, so I don't have to go do that. And there's someone you can hire to go do everything. So that's why for a lot of us, the money gets removed. So we have to go through these things. We have to go through realities we don't want to go through. We have to clear. There's a lot of different ways to clear the body. Some of us are going to choose to go the cancer route. Some people will choose not to go that route, and they'll choose other realities they will set up themselves to clear. And you have to look at it like that's what it's there for. It is to clear, and it could feel harsh and cold when you say it, but that way, But that is one way to clear your DNA, to clear the human programming. But what do we reprogram with? And you you touched on it for a bit when you talked about, what are you putting in your body? And we do get more into our bodies for a while. We do try to get our body frequency up, but that also, it's not just the clean water and the cleaner food. It's everything else we're avoiding. I see a lot of people that are out there that are health nuts. I'm going to say health nuts. That's really not a nice way to put it, but you know what I'm saying. They're really obsessed with all that stuff, but they're not enlightened. That doesn't, I don't mean that to come out the way that came out, but that doesn't mean they're more conscious than you are. They might be more conscious of what they put in their body, but if they're doing that because the reason is I want to look better, then you're starting that out on a frequency that's not the frequency that we're talking about. So it's not so much the act, it's why are we doing it? And that can go back to some of the beauty standards you talked about earlier. It's not just that one, it's why are we doing it? And how do we feel about it? And is there a reason we're doing it or not doing it? So when we get into clearing the body and clearing the human stuff, because we're not just clearing what we done in our body in this lifetime, because I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, and we were all about the fake shit food. I mean, that's just how no one knew yet. That's when it first started coming in. And, and now I read the labels, but back then they didn't even have labels. I don't remember when they had to start putting labels on food, but they didn't have that when I was younger. You didn't know what was in it, but as we really start to talk about what are we putting in our body, what are you putting your body in? What situation do you make your body go to every day? I've been watching the show Severance, which they just talk about. They're getting into now severing people's consciousness. So when they go to the dentist, they won't remember that. Or if they're going to the gym, they won't remember it, right? And how many times of the day would you like to be able to not have to remember something you had to go do? Whether it be going to that job, whether it be going in that relationship, whether it be how you feel when you're by yourself. There's more to just our body consciousness. I mean, what we're putting in our body is very important. I don't want to understate that. But there's also beyond that. What are you making your body go through? Where are you putting your body that energetically is not the highest aligned? And even it might not be the highest of the high, but it's not even anywhere near highest aligned. You can feel it when you go in. What are the emotions it's bringing up? How do we really feel about ourselves? These are the places we have to go. And that's when people usually don't want to go. That's when they want to get off the ride. They want to get off the bus because that's when shit has to change. That's when your whole life has to change because you have to really, really look at what you're doing and what you're putting your body through and the relationships you have and what really serves you going through when you start even listening to higher consciousness material. You're going to learn. Like when I learned Reiki years ago, I learned right side was feminine, left side was masculine. So when I would do readings, if I had a lot of energy on the right side, it was feminine and left side was masculine. I think that's how it went. I'm pretty sure that's how it went. When I would do medium readings years ago, because I did that for a little while too, because you could just sense the energy field. Now I look at it differently, but when I did it, I would look at it like how many people do I got on the right? That's feminine energy from that lineage, and that's paternal energy, that's maternal energy. Look about how you're sleeping. Are you sleeping on your left side? Are you clearing your past? Are you sleeping on the right side? Are you clearing your future? Are you sleeping in your stomach? Are you trying to nurture your body? Are you sleeping on your back? Are you trying to connect? Look at what your body is trying to tell you. Do you eat this food and all of a sudden, maybe you do want junk food some days. Maybe, I live some days I just eat chocolate bars. And that's all I eat. And a lot of chocolate. I'm not talking about a little chocolate. I'm talking about I consume massive amounts of chocolate on a daily basis because that's what my body feels like it needs that day. So I do kind of want to just touch on, when you're really looking at your body frequency. Sleeping is a big way to raise your body frequency, but that's not something that a lot of people look at and think about as something I should just sleep all the time. That's why when people get older, when they're transitioning, they're going to transition through death. You notice a lot of them sleep a lot more, because they're getting ready for their transition, but they're not going to be going through ascension in the sense of what we're doing. They're going to, transition a different way, and they're going to transcend a different way and ascend in a different body later. But a lot of this stuff, you just kind of see it playing out. And when we talk about, what reality do we want to experience? You have to clear certain things from your body. Okay. There's no getting around it. It's just not. If you have issues with your father, you got to clear those. You have issues with your mother. If you're in a relationship and you're always in a relationship that doesn't make you happy, it doesn't matter who you're with, you're still not happy, you give your power away. You have to deal with that stuff. You have to clear it from your body, because if you don't clear it, go head on and try to clear it that way, you will set up another experience to clear it a different way. And you might not like the way your universe tries to clear it the next time. So look at what you're avoiding trying to do. Look at what you're avoiding trying to clear. Where do you not want to go? That's where you got to go. Where do you not want to be? That's where you got to be. And that's the body frequency when we really start to talk about it. And like I said, I do not want to underestimate what we're putting in our body, because that is critical. During certain parts, it's critical. But being able to really look at what we're doing, and that's where you kind of, where the rubber hits the road. What are you staying in because you feel like every time I hear someone say, well, that's how it is. Well, that's just how it is. And there's no other way. And there's always another way. There's always another way. There's never one way. There's multiple ways. It's just, I just to touch back on the show Severance for a second. I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about it. And they were saying, oh, there's so many things I want to sever out every day that I do that I would not want to remember, that I don't enjoy doing, but I have to go do every day. It's like, how many, if you just take a day of your life and write down all the shit you didn't want to do, but you did it anyway. Now, there might be multiple reasons for that. Some you might be able to sit there and go, okay, I have a soul contract to do that. I have a soul agreement to complete that. I'm supposed to be here to do this. But if you can say that about some things, and if one of the reasons is, well, yeah, because I felt like I had to go, that's different energy. And that's a different reason you're there. And then that's more of the stuff when I really get into thinking about my body and raising my vibration. It goes to that for me a lot of times because I do tend to eat cleaner, than most people probably do. But it goes to that, it goes to what are we surrounding ourselselves with. Now, there's a time I couldn't watch really violent stuff. I remember I tried to watch Game of Thrones and I could get through like one episode. I get through like one episode every week and I'm like, I cannot watch it. But I did eventually finish it. And this was years ago. Now this stuff doesn't bother me. Now I can pretty much watch whatever and it doesn't affect me the way it used to affect me because I can look at everything and start to see a higher consciousness reason why it's there. Everything is in our field to activate us. It's activating us as something we have to clear. It's activating us as something we need to see. It's activating something. It's not just there we don't have red herrings in our reality. There's nothing put there for no damn reason. Everything's for a reason. There's a pin on that over there. Well, that's there for a reason. We don't have things that are just there for no reason. If you look at science, they would say like 90% of our DNA is junk DNA. That's what they used to say because they didn't know what it was. They have no idea, and to them it is because it doesn't have a reason for human DNA. But now you see a lot of people trying to unlock that. Wow, but if you were going to program a person, one way to program a person, they were talking about more like assassin programming and that kind of stuff. There's some sci-fi thing I was watching would be to implant it in the DNA. And that's where all the stuff is. So when we even talk about Ascension, we're talking about unlocking that 90% of the DNA that has your ancient memories, that has all of that, the ancient knowledge, your higher aspects, all that stuff is in the body. It's just locked away. It's under so much stuff. It's almost like the old fairy tale, The Princess and the Pea. And it was all those mattresses in that little tiny pea. You got to go through all that stuff. You got to throw up all the mattresses and really look at what we're doing and what you're putting yourself in every day and why. And what do you not want to face? There's a lot of ugly human stuff we just don't want to face. We can live in a world where all these people are homeless and that's okay. It's not okay. But we see it all the time. You see it constantly. But if it's not affecting you specifically, it doesn't seem to be a big deal, right? And I mean, I used to be the same way. So I'm not saying that for anyone I used to be the same way. If it doesn't affect, I don't really think that much about it, to be honest. But when you get to different parts of Ascension, you see all of that. Because you don't have all the stuff in the way telling you, no, that's okay. No, we know it's not okay anymore. Because we've shedded the thing that told us that was okay. We've shedded that layer of our human consciousness to say, no, that's not okay. That doesn't make any sense. So, all right, I'm going to kick it back to you.
That's great. And that assists me to segue into a couple things, which is sleep and like redefining sleep. That was so big for me of, the rules, the laws of like get your 8 hours, and if you don't sleep well, I remember it would ruin my entire day if I didn't sleep well. And then when I had my daughter and she was a newborn, that programming broke for me, and then it was like, no, you just sleep when you can, you'll be fine. You'll be amazed at how little sleep you need or whatever. It all works out. You kind of like soften that holding on to that, like that needing that condition. And then in the awakening and the ascension journey, we start to see, the sleeping, like you were touching on, is a way of rehabilitation. It's a way of rebuilding our light. And sometimes even, doing work that we can do easier in that consciousness instead of the waking consciousness, with the eyes open and everything. And so starting to reframe everything about the body, like what it's for, how we refuel it and recharge it, all these things that we're super humanized about. We're like kind of, I want to say dehumanizing the hold of our, of our conditional way of like, well, I'm only going to be happy if I get enough sleep and all these things. And another thing you touched on that pinged for me was seeing, at different phases, seeing people that are acutely aware of the elf waves, the EMFs, the cell towers, da 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 da. And it's like, I love this. Sandra Walter said this a couple years ago. She said, you know, we're like way past 5G. Like, if you tried to take your body and put it back 12 years ago, or sorry, if you took your body from 12 years ago, before all the solar flares we've been having, before all of the photonic light blasts, 12 years ago, your body would not be able to deal right now with what you have evolved into and acclimated to now. And I really appreciated her sharing that, because that's how I feel. There's a certain point where GMOs don't matter, microwaving your food doesn't matter, radiation doesn't matter, 5G, all this, because honestly, none of it compares to the radiation from the sun. And we have photoreceptors. We are made to evolve with that solar light. What it affects adversely is the carbon, the imbalance of carbon, the density within us. That's where we are more affected. And so you see, there's another like mental block, if you will, or like another glass ceiling for people to bust through in their perception and like how they frame reality, because there's a certain point where none of that stuff matters anymore, and that's not going to take away from your light. It's not going to dim your light. And I have observed people who, rather than do the work inside on, like you were talking about, pushing ourselves, forcing ourselves to do things, not really being happy, right? Or this inner work, we don't want to see stuff. So I would say, for the purpose of simplifying, that would be toxicity within. Rather than seeing the toxicity within and working through that, they're fixating on the toxicity without. Oh, and so I see people that are so warped and so obsessed with how toxic 5G and how toxic this and that and the building materials. Yeah, yeah, we know it's not all optimal. We get that. But there's nowhere, unless you maybe move to the middle of the fucking Amazon rainforest right now, there's nowhere that you're going to go that's off grid. There's nowhere you're going to go that is away from the satellite dishes that are roaming around and beaming the internet. Like, you got to get over it. Like, go inside and see, why are you giving your power over to something? Why are you making something more powerful than you? Why are you making something, allowing something to be detrimental to you? So it's like, again, not the accurate self-seeing of who and what we are as an energetic being, right? And like the soul's light, and how powerful the light of consciousness is to transcend any perceived limitation, or distortion or toxicity. So I appreciate everything you shared, because it's important to look at all the pieces. And just like you said, at a certain point, like food quality or even like eating meat, like none of this stuff matters. It's about the intention, it's about the energy. But I feel that in the beginning, it's important to clear and clarify because you can't really, in my experience and from the Ayurvedic perspective, you can't really consciously contact the subtle awareness of the body's wisdom as a finely tuned instrument on an energetic level, which is very subtle energy. That's etheric energy. It's very challenging to get to that point without having done the body cleansing. And so for me, I feel like that's the first layer, is like cleansing the body of the heavy metals and all that. And it's not to say you can't, get to all the higher frequencies and have amazing downloads and wisdom and all of that. But that's just my own experience, is that there's a temple clearing in order to house the amplitude that the temple was capable of holding. But in my personal experience, like, you eat healthy, but you're not going to die if you have fast food somewhere. Like, you're not gonna lose your enlightenment if you have meat. Like, that's where I feel like there starts to become this like control stuff that we see, this like controlling or a self-diminishing. I don't know. Anyway, I could go on and on about it. But we're bringing in all the pieces. That's what we want to do for you all, is like share all the things that we've seen, looked at, worked with, seen in others, observed in ourselves, and that there's no linear A to Z way of doing this. And that's what we're here to do, is like show all the different ways. So I'll pass it back to you now, Annette. Thank you for that, because that helps to keep opening it all up.
No, I would agree with you on that. I think that's one reason why, when the first reason why a majority of people, and I don't want to say everyone, but I would say 99.9% of people really get into that health, looking at what they're putting in their body when they don't feel well. Very few people just stumble into that because they feel terrific and they just want to clean up their body. And there's a reason why that's kind of one of the first things. It's low hanging fruit in a sense, And I will agree 100% that you have to start cleaning your body of the chemicals. You just have to. There's no way around that, and there's no way around getting off medication. The standard medication. I know some people wean off. I've been weaning off some thyroid medication for years now. And sometimes it can take time. My body kind of tells me, okay, now reduce again, and we just kind of have to be. But I don't let someone else tell me that. I don't let someone else tell me this is what you need to do, or now you're going to go do this, or you need to go to see a doctor for them to tell you you're okay. That's bullshit to me. I don't need to go to see someone to tell me if I'm not okay, I'll know it. I don't need someone to tell me that. I need someone to tell me, yeah, your body's fine. I don't need someone to tell me that. I don't need to have an x-ray to show me that I don't have an issue there. I don't require that. Now there are parts of the journey where I was in a different phase where if I didn't get that test, I was so afraid of getting a certain test done. If I didn't get it done, I had to break through the fear and get it done. You know what I mean? So it's never going to be an absolute, oh, Marissa and Annette said we don't do this, or blah, blah, blah. Sometimes it's like, no, I have to get this test done because I'm afraid to not get it done. So this is more breaking through my fear than it is the test. It's never about the thing. And that kind of loops back to where I started. It's not about the thing. It's about how you feel about the thing. Don't get caught up on the thing or what you think you have to do, or what you think you don't have to do. Now, for me, meat did go for me. And I think for a lot of people, it eventually does go. But I know a lot of people who don't eat meat that aren't going through Ascension. So there's also not that correlation either. But for me, it had to go. And I do feel like eventually for everyone, it does have to go at some point. I really do feel like it will at some point go for everybody. But that doesn't mean there might be a moment where you might not want it. And be like, all of a sudden, oh, I haven't had meat in 5 years, but I really want this. I don't know why. And sometimes it's to show you how your body feels with it, how your body feels without it. I did want to touch on, look at how many things, and I'm not even going to talk about pharmaceutical medication. I'm going to just talk about how many people I hear that have to take gummies to just get through the day. Well, how many times you're medicating your body to get through your life? And I think that's a lot of the stuff that comes to the forefront nowadays. I know I was at my father went to the doctor and I went with him. And they have the whole sign up about how we don't give antibiotics unless it's, blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, but I was joking with my dad. I was like, yeah, but if you want a Valium, they'll give you that right now. But don't you get an antibiotic because you're not getting that. But it just shows how things have shifted now. Now when I was a kid, they gave antibiotics out for everything. They didn't care. You stump your toe, they gave you an antibiotic. I can remember having surgery back in 2009 and 2010. And because of the pain after the surgery, getting just a bottle of Vicodin, like it had to be 100 capsules in there. And that was, 15 years ago, they were giving that stuff out like candy. And then that didn't go so well. And now they're giving out antidepressants like candy, and they don't care if you take that stuff. It's very easy to go in and get any of that stuff. And that's just because that's where things have shifted to where people required to get through the human existence. So those are the places we really want to look at, where can we, and it doesn't mean you should not utilize these things if you feel like it's important to utilize them, because there might be something where you're like, I need to use this for a little while. I need to use this to bridge. There's a lot of things we bridge, because the next reality is not set up yet. My body's not ready to do this yet. So I got to bridge with this thing or that thing. Just don't get attached to any of it, but be able to really look at what it is and don't try to fool yourself in thinking it's something else. If you have to take an antidepressant to go to work every day because you hate being there, there's nothing wrong with continuing to be there. If you feel like I'm supposed to be here till this point, it's not time yet. Okay. But you have to also see that this is not aligned. There's something going on here. And we can't be closed off to that. And it's not only just seeing that, it's seeing that and being able to act and do something about that. So many times people see stuff, but they don't want to do much. Oh, I see that. I know that's my pattern. That's what I do, whatever. So we have to go past all that. Yeah, I see that. Oh, I got to shift that. Oh yeah, it's time for me to go do something else with that now. It's not saying any of this stuff is okay. It doesn't matter. The soul doesn't look at it like that. It's not good or bad or yes or no. It just is. Do you want to eat meat today? No. Do you want to eat meat for the next 5 years? No. Then maybe all of a sudden you do. Do you want to have sex today? No. Do you want to not have sex for 10 years? Maybe. And maybe you do. Your body is going through so many different complex things when it is trying to upgrade that you never want to set that hard rule. We don't do this, we do this. Now we can't do that. Or you're not enlightened because you're doing that. Or you're not enlightened because you're doing that. Or you are because you're doing this. It's not just about, it's never just going to be one thing. It's always going to be so many things. So I'll kick it back to you.
Yeah, so good. Thank you. So good, because it's what we want to encourage is the inner, and I love it. Our brother Corey said the inner ascension. Such a beautiful way to say that, because the way that our senses are made, the way that our eyes are poking out, looking forward, like everything is drawing our attention outwards, when the whole game is to flip it in like a giant U. So we're looking out, whoop, let's flip it right back inside. And one of the things one of my teachers back in the day would say is, you spot it, you got it. So anything that you're observing, anything that you're observing, whether it's neutral or you're observing something, it's getting under your skin or it's causing judgment, it's all there as a reflection for you to burrow with that topic inside of yourself. Well, where is that inside? Why is there a resonance? Why is it? And so it's wonderful because, again, like when we are, I'll keep saying dehumanizing, but meaning like going more towards soul embodiment and different layers of higher consciousness beyond the human ego. We have to also move beyond like, well, I'm doing all the right things. I mean, that was a big one for me. I'm doing all the things I've been told to do, or that I've said to do, or that they do, but you're not going inside, you know? It's so important. It's so important. Is always exploring the reactions or reactivity to something or any responses inside. Like, oh, well, where'd that come from? And then there's that who, what, when, where, why, and how. Questioning is assisting as well to dig deeper, to probe deeper with it. Another thing I wanted to share that's so important is flowing with the energy. And so, Annette, I love how you're talking about like people having to numb themselves in order to have a human experience. And to me, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a good topic of like talking about suppression so that we can continue to be matrix when every part of our body is screaming to get the fuck out and to do something else. But we're not trusting it. We don't know what that is. We're not sure why we don't want to do what everyone tells them, what everyone else does. Like, and so hence my sharing about like clearing and cleaning the body so we can hear, it, and we're not suppressing the information, the feedback, the physical sensations as well of the body is a very finely tuned instrument of electromagnetics. I call it the biofeedback. So it's always reading the energy all around. And so as we are like busting out and like maybe initially beginning our awakening, there's a huge part of environment. And I was so happy you brought environment up, because that was one of the notes I had, is every day in this new frequency where we are now, you want to feel into your environment. And it starts first with the inner landscape. It starts first with the inner realm. What emotions are present? How are we feeling? And how is our energy level? Are we observing that in this moment, oh, I have mental energy, I can do some mental tasks. I have physical energy, I could be physical, I could, shovel the driveway or whatever, any physical chores. Or conversely, oh my gosh, I have zero physical, zero mental energy. I'm kind of feeling more vegetative actually, and I call it pancake mode when we really get hit with these frequencies, or maybe we're integrating, and you can't really transmit or receive information. You're just kind of having to lie there and just allow the circulation, of the energy and this like rebuilding happening. And you have to just let yourself be flat. And so, what we're going to see shifting for so many people as this process becomes more collective and more mainstream is total lifestyle shifts, all revolving around the energy and becoming energy beings. And we've always been energy beings. But now it's going to become a lot more evident. If people can't get out of bed to drive to the office, no one's going to be in the office. And we're going to have to figure out some other ways of functioning, and so a lot of us way showers, we have a bed desk. So I'll have a desktop when I can sit up straight in my spine. Then I have a laptop and like a whole bed desk where I can lay down when my spine has to be horizontal, to integrate or to shift and so that's a huge one. I just wanted to share is like flowing with the energy, or being in a rebuild. And this is where we're surrendering again, because we are releasing all these ways of functioning that are the human ways, Oh yeah, 9 to 5, all these, like all of that's going out the window. Like timelessness is here, a quantum flow is here, living energetically is here. And it's quite an adaptation, and it does kick off a lot of other pieces, for like our survival, right? And our thrival and our lack, and a lot of fears can come up and out of the body, but that's also the point. So when Annette was saying, like what's here in the body, and so by turning the focus inwards, then we're going to allow the pieces to rise. And I want to share, there are certain places you get to where, the clearing isn't happening as much. It's not your full-time thing, but it will still be happening, meaning that you are having memories arise or clearing, ancestral and DNA kind of stuff, emotional stories, that it will come up more based on the space weather, and what the Schumann is doing. The Schumann resonance or the solar flares will affect our psychology and our nervous system, which will kick up stuff out of the subconscious. But there come to these places where you're very peaceful and you're just floating inside in yourself with your body and your reality as a universe. And you're just kind of, floating through your life experience and in flow, in a lovely flow, and then bam, you could get hit. Almost feels like you get hit by lightning and it's time for an upgrade or some shifting. So I just felt like it was important to kind of elaborate on a quantum energetic flow lifestyle and how that's very different than a linear lifestyle, right? And most around us won't understand if they're not on the same path. So just things to take into consideration, and like just don't flip out, so we want to share like what this looks like, and bring it in a as grounded and realistic way as possible with all these wild, quantum topics, but just to support you so that you don't flip out. And I'll share this fun quote from Barbara Marciniak, who channels the Pleiadians. And back in the 80s, she was telling us, she was like, oh yeah, the Ascension, humanity's probably just going to sleep right through it. And this is now, like that's what's happening now. She was sharing, they were sharing, so the sleep is important. Sometimes you want a cat nap during the day and then you're up at a weird time at night and you're like, why the hell am I up in the middle of the night? Because everyone else is asleep. There's actually a lot more psychic, energy to source from. It's very energetically quiet because all the linear processors are, they're turned off, everyone's in a reboot mode. Very interesting, and in the Indian tradition, the very early morning hours, they call that like the brahmacharya hours, because there's not a lot of disturbance in the force, there's more access for us. So anyways, just interesting things to observe about our schedules, and like nocturnal or diurnal, or just this bizarre quantum flow, or not getting any sleep and it doesn't matter. You still feel jacked maybe because of the X class flare. You're like really feeling super energized. And then another kind of flare could hit and you feel heavy and exhausted. You feel like you're made of lead, and you just don't want to resist. You don't want to fight the process. For me, that was something it took years for me to fucking relax and trust the process, and also trust my light and my light body to provide for me, that if I can't be as physical, then the energetic aspects, the light aspects are going to assist. And if I can just get out of the way, so I always just want to try to help you guys shortcut, like to be less stubborn or less in resistance, and trust the flow. And I'll pass it over to you, Annette.
No, I think that's a good point when you talk about trusting the flow. Um, because even I'll still catch myself because I'm like, oh, I really wanted to do this today. But then it just doesn't work out. It's supposed to be done today. No matter how much I try to push it, it just doesn't matter. It didn't work out. I had to end up going back to that store 3 times because it was, because it's not going to work today. You're not going to actually get it to go today or whatever. So I will still catch myself really trying to force something to happen in a day because I just really want to do this today, but it's not aligned today. It's not flowing today. Why do you have to have it done today? And I always have to look at myself and say, yeah, why does it have to be done today? Why don't I want to do this right now? Because our ego will really want to do something. And in our human experience, we would just push through that shit. We would just know this shit's happening today. I don't hella high water. This is getting done today. When tomorrow would be a better day energetically to do it. So when you are in the middle of something and you're trying to push your body to do it, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, it's just not working. It's just not working. I can't get it done today. We're just not supposed to. And there'll be other days. Like I was telling Marissa before he came on, I've been redoing the room I'm in, painting it. And I haven't done any videos in like a week or so because I was really trying to focus on this because this felt like this is what I'm supposed to do right now. Take this week and get this room painted and get it together and redecorate it and everything. That's what you need to do. Don't worry about the other stuff. Whereas my human would have been, no, 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 let me do this, let me do that. No, you do what you feel your higher selves are telling you what to do in a sense. You don't have to, as my cat just nibbles and bites me. That's what happens. Just your universe is going to do is like, it'll show you what you need to do. It's just you. It's just higher aspects of us because it's already done them. It knows that the 15th is the best day to do that, not the 12th. So don't try to do it on the 12th because it's not going to work out. Do it on the 15th. So don't let yourself get into the mindset, and sometimes I'll just ask, I really feel like I want to do this. It's just feel right. Can I do this today? Maybe tomorrow is a better day. Let me get this done because I also want to I need to do seeding on the yard and I know I have to do that next. But so let me get this room knocked out now because it feels like I have the energy to do it. So I think what Marissa said was really important in that sense. And also not getting too bogged down on, of course, I had to let the cat in. That's the trouble cat. He's like jumping on the computer and trying to bite my hand and looking out of my glass. I'm like, stop. The trouble child. When we talk about sleep, and I'll kick it back to you to kind of close this out because we might have some questions. I think I saw one question, so um I used to sleep a lot in the beginning. Then I kind of was probably a normal sleeper, and now I don't really sleep that much. I'm up really late and I never used to be a night owl. Maybe I was when I was a lot younger, like in my teens, I was maybe a night owl, but not anywhere since I've gone through awakening and ascension have I been a night owl at all. And now I feel very much strongly. I might not go to bed until midnight, and that's crazy for me because I do get up pretty early in the morning. So I have noticed that shift, but it's also just when the house is quiet and I can just be by myself and I play with cats and we just kind of chill together and then we'll just go to bed. So it is important to just listen to what your body wants to do and look at where you're trying to override it. Look at where your human consciousness is trying to override the body. And I still have to check myself on that. Because Marissa will say, well, she's still, some people will say they still eat meat, right? I still go to the gym. And that's something a lot of people say you can't do that. You can't do that. You're the grid, and I understand what's being said. The muscles that's in your body, your the consciousness is in your body. You got to get out of your muscles. Yet I still go because I enjoy going. I enjoy going. I enjoy getting away. I enjoy going in the morning and listening to a podcast and just being by myself. In a sense, even those people there, but in a way, I'm just by myself. I'm doing something I want to do. So, but I do check with myself on that and say, okay, do I want to go today? Do I want to skip today? How do I feel about it? So just really be honest and really ask yourself, am I doing it because it's always the energy behind why you're doing it that matters. It's not what you're doing. So I'm going to we're going to start closing out. So I think we have a couple of questions. I'll let you kind of handle those, Marissa, and we can kick those back and forth.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, yeah, all about intention. I totally agree. All about the intention. And we have some great questions here. So Corey asked about light body. And let me just go up a little bit. Light body alignment. Yes, yes. So rebooting and coming back. So the best way is to I say stop. It's almost like stop, drop, and roll, stop, drop, and just let yourself rebuild. And so a nice thing to do is to just lie down wherever is comfortable to lie down. Listen to some nice frequencies if you can, like some solfeggio if you can. Like I think it's Dynasty Electric is this really great couple on YouTube that do beautiful solfeggio tone frequencies with like dolphin or whale sounds sometimes. And she's like toning and they're really incredible for rebuilding. But just laying in the sunlight and just bathing in the light, imagining different frequency rays of color and like bringing them into the body and just like pouring them through the body, imagining the body radiated with the light, whatever different color rays come through. And really it's about the sparkle, so getting your sparkle back, whether it's looking at, for me today, I had to be out of the house and out of my mind. So it was all about the body. It was all about the optic nerve. It was all about embodying light because we have sun today. So I spent a lot of time at the shore watching the water, the sunlight on the water. And that was my meditation. That was my light bath, was watching the sunlight on the water. So very simple, very simple tuning in and allowing yourself to be fulfilled by a sensory, pleasurable sight or a sound, something that feels like it's radiating to you. And yeah, that's what I would do, is just let go completely. And then eventually you feel that shift where your body drops and lets go. And you feel like you're floating again inside. And you're like, okay, yeah, I feel my energy has expanded again, and I'm nourishing the light body. So for me, I say like finding your sparkle back is a way to nourish the light body. And then we have a beautiful question about Baringaraj. I use Baringaraj for hair, so I'm not familiar with that entire herb, but I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner. So what I really like right now for this process are things like magnesium, ashwagandha, or gotu kola, or brahmi, or tulsi tea, or a skull cap. Like those are some of the things. Like really, it's about the nervine tonics right now because the frequencies they're so high, and there's a lot of subconscious purging. And so with all of this energy, you'll see people like kind of out of their minds, maybe a lot, depending on their consciousness and like their path. And we want to get out of our minds as much as possible, and in the body and in the higher realm consciousness, like not the linear mind. And with the electromagnetics being what they are, they keep pulling us back to the mind and pulling us back to the mind so that we can consciously purge the subconscious, but then we don't want to get stuck there. You know what I mean? So I always say out of the head into the body, out of the head into the body. So it's so beautiful. So I appreciate your guys' questions here, and would love to, Annette, if you want to throw anything in for these questions before we close, that'd be awesome.
I actually started doing the skull cap. I heard you and I think it was Britta talking about skull cap. So I actually started doing. I also give it to the cat too, if I'm trying to calm the cat down. I always give him the skull cap. Um, I do a lot of turmeric. I do a lot of magnesium. Shazandra is another one I will do. Um, and sometimes for me, when I want to kind of get back in the body, I will just consciously like say I want to raise my vibration by whatever, 1,000%, 2,000%. Let's pick a number. It doesn't matter what the number is, and then I can feel. You can just feel your body raising. You can just feel your frequency going up. You can feel your body kind of floating. Sometimes I'll play that game, um, and that will kind of help me kind of get back because there's so many times, especially this year, I feel a lot of us are just in complete template rewrites, complete reboots, and it's not just like it's a 10-minute thing. It can be months. I know I've kind of been in one this year. I feel like I've been in it since beginning of the year, really. Um, and I see what you put there. Yeah, it's okay to let go. It's okay to let that go, and you say what it is and see where in your body you feel something. It's like, okay, when I say that, I feel that in my stomach. So where do I feel it at when I say whatever it is that's bothering me out loud? If you even know what it is, sometimes we don't know what it is. Sometimes it's just our body needs to recharge. Our body's getting hit with a lot. The solar flares are off the charts, and it's just going to continue because the earth is changing. She is changing. She's evolving like we're evolving. And some people are going to be able to exist in those climates. Some people are not, and that depends on people's agreements with their ascension process and what their body's going to be able to do. Um, but just supporting your body and what feels right to you at the time. And don't get so bogged down on what someone else says. There's so much of that, I see so many people, well, what did they say? Or what did they say? And well, I would see people who get pissed off. I had a friend that would do that. She was like, I asked someone's opinion, then they told me, and that really made me mad. I'm like, then why did you ask? If you don't want to care what people think, why do you care? Like, why does it matter to go on Facebook and say, well, this is this and this, and you don't want to hear, of course you want people to say something, but don't get pissed when people give you advice. You just ask for advice. So it kind of can go to that too. Sometimes I'll feel like I want to research something. I want to look some stuff up, but then I see how it feels to me. It's kind of like those old school dream dictionaries. It doesn't really matter what it says it means. It's what does it mean to you? But that might trigger something, and that might feel right to you. We're like, oh yeah, that does feel right. That does feel like that might be what it means. And other times it's like, but it's not a. I hate to use the word Bible, but it's not like that's all there is. That's only one answer. There's never one answer. You just can't think of any more if you only have one. You just don't. You're not allowing yourself to explore more than one option. There's always more options. Just set and make out a list of all the options. There's some you might not want to do. There's some that you don't want to go. We don't want to have to pursue, but there are always other ones. So I think I'll leave it at that. I know we're getting close to our time, so I will sign off and let you do the long close.
Well, thank you so much, Annette. So a couple of things came that I want to close this with as you were sharing. I'm like, oh yeah, you reminded me of a few more things. Is when you are in the process of anything with your body, anything with your health, if you are seeking, professional feedback, support, whatever, never let anyone else's say rule over you and how you feel inside. So if you feel the need for a second, third, fourth opinion, or to try something completely new, right? To be completely out of the box with it, right? And I'll share from a personal example. And I'm blessed that I could have the visions when I was young. But when I was young, I always saw myself and I always saw my daughter. I knew I was going to have a little girl. And then part of my illness journey, I had to take an oral chemotherapy for the autoimmune issue that I had with my kidneys. And the doctor said to me, and I was like 8 and a half, not quite 9 years old. He said, oh, you could be sterilized from this. And I remember, and I didn't say anything, but I remember just like looking in his face and just thinking and feeling inside, no, motherfucker, I've already seen her. So, you are in charge of and I have a daughter, she's almost 16 years old. You know what I mean? So you are in charge. You are in charge of the experience. No one, nothing outside has any say over what it is, and the best method. And like, basically, like, don't sign your death warrant based on what something outside has told you about you. And that goes for anything about you and anything about you and who you are. So I want to share that because that's really important, is to not give our power over to anything outside ever again. And then I kind of, in that story, I forgot the other one. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. It was about light body. For anyone who has other questions about light body, I did a live a couple weeks ago. So you'll see it's Light Body 101. And we did about an hour of diving deeply into different aspects of the light body and supplementation specifically for that. And also different light practices, like working with light, playing with the light. If you're feeling like that you'll find that on the channel in like the library of lives. So I hope that this was supportive for you all to start to look at energy, body, your sovereignty, what you're capable of. Anything that one can conceive, one can achieve. Remember the power of the mind. Remember the mindset. Remember that all who truly want to be here on the planet for this shift as it continues to intensify, all who truly want to be here and believe they are worthy and that their desire alone to be here warrants their worthiness, will be here. It's very important to know. Some people they're done. They're done with it, they're on to the next plane, right? But just to assist those around us, and sometimes we have to speak in a very coded way with others or use more human language. But regardless of the diagnosis, the health journey, whatever is going on, if someone loves being here and they want to be here, then encourage them to feel that that desire is assisting them. It is their truth and that they are worthy of being here. And once we can own the worthiness of being here on this planet to fulfill our mission, whatever the reason is for wanting to remain here on this plane until we're done, that warrants their worthiness. And we have to open the door to that worthiness, which then will open the portals and so on for the alternative knowledge, opening, activation, alternative medicine, whatever, dietary change, mindset change, attitude change, whatever, whatever the pivot is. It's very important for all of us to know that, because with so much of the power of the white lab coats, which I will say as I digress, the white lab coats is a whole Atlantean thing. It's a whole Atlantean power structure, a hierarchy. That is the old paradigm. So it's up to all of us to determine what truth is, you know? So, anyways, I'll close with that. And I just want to thank you all for being here, for joining us, and thank you, Annette, for always assisting us to expand it and flip it and look at it a million different ways. It's wonderful. So I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I will see you next time. I enjoyed it. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Take care.